We shall start again.
Okay.
And we shall click record this time.
Always. Always.
So, because of the date, it obviously makes a lot of sense to talk about the standard New Year, New Me
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
And I've got the 3 goals of improve body composition through fat loss. Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I'm not starting off very fat, but as we said before, getting from 14% down to 10, that would be all good. And then talk about, I think, the supplement side of things. I feel like there's some tweaks. I do a lot, as you know. I feel like there are tweaks to be had, and also better posture would be nice, because I feel like I do a decent amount and I've got a lot of knowledge, but again, with everything, there's still that neck situation which makes you look like a shrimp, which is just not ideal. But in terms of the fat loss side of things, you kind of do know about my daily routine. My steps have gone down massively to like 2,000 to 3,000.
Yeah.
I go to the gym, I sauna afterwards, but then I struggle to find time to do that sort of neat. I don't stand that much with the standing desk or the posture stool because I feel like I lose my concentration sort of as the day goes on, and that's why I feel like this chair is so good, because I can do so much more work throughout the day, but then I struggle to get sort of those calories burnt, so to speak. And I also feel like I'm very good at not eating, which can be a half decent thing.
Yeah.
But with that, you don't eat, and then you look at your healthy food and you go, you know what, that doesn't look very tasty.
Yeah.
Let's have something a little bit naughty. So it's a long period of not eating followed by terrible food. So I guess those are the main key issues. Feeling like I don't really have the time, considering what I'm doing, not wanting to tire myself out because I've got so much work stuff going on. Those are kind of the main ones. So how do you think I can sort of incorporate that into a fat loss strategy?
Yeah. So as with all things, I think we have to it starts with really good honesty. So we need to be honest with what our expectations are and when we want to do something by. So you are pretty damn disciplined, to be fair. You've got a lot of stuff going on in different facets of your life, and you get on and you put the big rocks in first. You try and look after yourself as much as possible. Now, if you only look after yourself and don't really care about other people, you're not a grown-up, you're a baby child, or I think we call them professional footballers. Or insert athlete here. But, those are the only people who can really justify being completely selfish most of the time. For the rest of us, we've got family, we've got commitments, we need to get stuff done. So we need to you need to be able to give yourself a break and again, adjust your expectations. And to think, okay, well, if new year, new me, whatever, how far am I going to go with this? Now, you know me for the last 15 years, whatever it's been, I will jump up and down saying, if you want to do something, do it now. Don't wait for Monday, don't wait for the 1st, don't wait for January. But if we're gonna have this thing of, okay, I'm going to do it in January, then great, let's use that thing and let's give yourself a solid endpoint. So you actually want to make a SMART goal, essentially, and you're going to say, okay, by this time I'm going to have achieved this thing. Any kind of external accountability works really well. So that's why going on holiday, all of a sudden we do actually get in shape, because we're like, hang on a second,
why am I wobbling when I'm walking?
It's like, Moby Dick kind of got really hairy and like that. Like, what the hell's going on here? So you're like, okay, I need to get in shape because, I might be hunted when I go on the beach, or they might try and push me back in the sea. So let's, and even if you're not going to go on holiday or whatever, you need to say to your buddy Lloyd, okay, 4-week picks. So what that means is take picks now. Yeah. In 4 weeks, we're both going to take picks and see what's going on. And have we made it?
1 second, let me just download Snapchat.
No, I still don't have it. I mean, I probably still have my account from 20.
Moz's knee.
Yeah, Moz's knee. Do you still have the video of that?
Oh no, I think YouTube deleted it.
Oh,
I think it was on like 300, 400,000 views.
And what was it? A video of?
His knee, his bursitis. He had patella bursitis, and the knee, it popped and spurted out for 3 or 4 minutes. Oh, how manky.
And what came out?
Like a yellow pus with blood. And good. It stank as well.
Oh man.
Wow.
Good times. Yeah. So essentially you're giving yourself a hard objective where hard deadline of when you're going to do something by. Now that does a couple of things. One, it gives you the motivation and say, right, I'm actually going to go for this. I'm going to do a 4-week cut, or 4-week cut, 2 weeks maintenance, 4-week cut, whatever it is. We can go into that in a bit more detail. And it's going to give you something to really motivate yourself towards. The other thing that does is, let's record everything. Okay, we're actual grown-ups now, so we need to know, if you do X, Y, Z, what's the outcome? If you do green, yellow, blue, what's the outcome? So in this case, if we're starting at, say, 14% body fat, we do a 4-week cut with 3 times early morning cardio, 6 times resistance training, and calories at 2,500. What do you actually achieve? And so that's when we really note this down. We know what's happened this time, so we can kind of have a much more informed decision of what we're going to do next time. So as ever, get the measurements.
Would you say that, I assumed you would say the other way round, 7 days a week early morning cardio, 3-4 days a week training, but you've gone the other way?
Yeah, I mean, it's that was just an objective. That was just an example. Again, what I'd be doing is I'd be ramping stuff up. So we can jump into that in a bit more detail. So I'll just make a quick note to say come into that. But the other thing is the steps. So again, with steps and with calories, everyone massively overestimates the hard work. Oh yeah, I must have done 30,000 steps, and you've done 3. That's 3 steps, not 3,000. And again, I've only eaten, or like for me, it'd be like, I've just eaten 12 chocolate bars, and it's like 12,000 chocolate bars. With you, you're like, I've definitely gotten all of my calories. I've gotten like 4,000 calories a day, and again, it's 4 calories. So this is why we have to be really objective and actually note down what we're doing.
So for years and years, I've just been hitting generally 160 grams of protein a day. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, that's cheating because I take 2 shakes, so that's 80 as is, and I can eat 80 quite comfortably. Yeah. Do you think there's long-term issues with supplementing with shakes? The sucralose, the gut biome, getting used to it, and all that sort of stuff, or it is what it is.
It's difficult to say. I mean, again, as soon as we get into the microbiome, I think it's wonderful to hear how everyone is an expert. Everyone knows so much about the microbiome. And you'd be like, if we knew that much about the microbiome, we'd be selling ultimate microbiome starter kits. And we don't know enough about it. We can have a look and have a guesstimation. But again, I think, remember, human beings are really good at finding excuses not to do things. So I think people will say like, I don't want to do this because it will then do that. You're like, no, just do it. The reason you don't want to do it is because you're lazy.
Yeah.
The reason you don't want to do it is because you're scared of what might actually happen. So, for me, I used to be able to have whey protein. I had whey protein, twice a day for 20 years or something like that. And now it doesn't agree with my stomach so much. I'm not sure why that's been the case. My brother, is pretty similar to me. He still has whey protein without any kind of issue. I use caseinate most of the time now. So I think you do have to be sensitive to it. I'm not sure. For me, I'm not sure if it's after some particular upset stomach or antibiotic or whatever. It's difficult to say. I think when in doubt, try and use as clean, as unprocessed, as few added things to that as possible. I think that's a pretty good thing to do for most of your life. And if you do that for the majority of your life, then actually the things that you can have, let's be perfectly honest, if you're going to be having, 1 or 2 shakes a day, you probably don't want it just to taste of like stale cow, which is what the unflavored whey and unflavoured caseinate taste like. For me, they're just like, a bit of a rotting cow. No, thanks. I'd like to have some kind of flavouring in there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I don't think we have enough data to make any kind of observation one way or another. Again, when possible, solid gains with solid food. So let's try and stick with that. But it is difficult. If you want to be getting anything more than, breakfast is always problematic, right? Unless you're hardcore and you're really happy eating your chicken and rice for breakfast, in which case, massive win.
Or your 42 eggs.
Yeah. Well, so how many eggs to get 40 grams of protein?
6. Like I can eat 6 or 7 eggs quite easily, but I can't eat them in the morning. So I don't mind the overnight oats in the morning with the protein shake at like 8.
Yeah.
do that while I'm on calls,
Yeah.
go to the gym, come back and eat 6 eggs. It's quite comfortable.
Okay.
But then if I have that and then I have 2 more meals, I'm still only at 100,
There you go.
110,
Yeah.
120
And again,
grams
if you
of
want to
protein.
have as good anabolism as possible, you want to be making sure you're having something like whey or caseinate protein straight after the gym. So
Is that
you're
a
going to be
thing?
taking it. So
Is
make
that
it
still a
easier on
thing?
yourself.
But is that still a thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do think that the anabolic window isn't just bro science. It is a
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're looking at, so I'll still go with the mTOR activation. So there's still going to be essentially, if you come from a standpoint of if you've broken down muscles, you'll almost certainly have depleted the glycogen in the muscle, and B, you'll have kind of micro tears within the muscle. So that will be the place where your body is most willing and ready to take stuff in. Again, I think what's really interesting is people will basically see what their results are compared to some massive roided up monster and be like, well, it doesn't really work. I can't see myself getting as massive as them in a short frame of time, therefore it doesn't work. It does work. It works pretty darn well. So we know we'll be more sensitive. Say again?
Your secret was always to have like something that spikes insulin after training with your protein shake. When you're on a fat loss, would you still recommend taking a Snickers with your protein shake or not?
So I can't say I would recommend it. I would say,
but if it fits your macros,
again, and so I think the other thing is for me, I find not eating quite difficult. And I still like people. Having like the reward of having something fun. And if I say, well, look, actually, I'm going to earn, I know this isn't the healthiest way to look at it, but it's certainly a way that I think a lot of people can, 3,000 and counting, people that I've worked with, I think do find it to be useful, is to say, right, if I'm going to have a Snickers or half a Snickers once a day or 4 times a week, it's going to be straight after training as part of my macros and a part of really trying to shuttle in as many amino acids into the muscles post-training. So work damn hard, make sure you're actually getting, you're using the insulin from the sugar to really drive the amino acids into the muscle. And then also say, right, that's enough. I've had that. That's all I need. If you find that then starts the cascade of needing to eat chocolate all the time, then I'm afraid that's not for you. You need to not have that. Instead, jam sandwich or whatever else it is that's going to give you a little bit of carbs that will probably be a little bit more long lasting, and that will help for you. Let's just jump back to steps for a second.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Cool. So the thing about steps is, I've seen physique differences in people in 3 to 4 weeks if they're doing plus 20,000 steps a day. Yeah. So
I'm not sold so far on this idea.
So if people expect a change in their life from doing 10,000 steps a day, they are going to have to be utterly sedentary and not eating anything. And whatever change they'll get will probably be, remember, anything works for 2 weeks. So it'll be great for 2 weeks. You're like, oh, I've really seen a difference. Then after that, you're like, crushing stop. There's nothing happening here. If you're doing something like 25, 30,000 steps a day, I think you might remember there was someone who did some strength and conditioning work with the MCCU after me, who, I think he did something like 25,000 steps before lunch.
Keen.
Yeah. And he was like, I can just eat whatever the hell I like.
Yeah.
Because pre-lunch he was on, post-lunch he would have done 35,000 steps a day, and he was running around doing lots of other stuff. So that's when you're doing a huge amount. Most people, I would argue, do not have the 3 hours a day to do that. So you just have to have decent expectations. And remember, yes, it will make an effect, but that's going to be over a longer period of time. That's going to be over 6 weeks. It's going to be over 12 weeks. It's going to be over something like that you see those extra steps in. What I would say
Where do you find the time?
Say again?
Where do you find the time?
Yeah, exactly.
To add in an extra 12,000 steps.
It's really difficult. So most people love convenience. So, it's so funny going back to the States and seeing my brother, no one walks. And it's getting much more like that here. For me, my wife and I will take the kids to school in the morning, up a hill, down a hill. I'll I'll cycle to the gym from work. I will probably go out in the afternoon to get some shopping and stuff like that. And I'd say I probably do a little bit more than most people. So that's, 3, maybe 4 things throughout the day where you go out and walk. So you have to say, well, what can you do? So is it getting off the bus, not 1 stop earlier, but 5 stops earlier? Is it having the, the small milk or having the small dog?
Yeah, so for me, like, go to the gym, come back, and there's nothing really around. Yeah. So, like, bit of a hard one, isn't it? Like, we can go out and go for a walk and stuff, but I feel like, again, it's hard to justify when I've got so much to do. And we talk about, not necessarily, going on a podcast or having a phone call because of that resting default state. Yeah. Would you suggest, like, just sucking it up and going out in silence, or?
Yeah. So I'd say my big thing about resting default state is we need to get you into that as often as possible to recharge the brain. So we need to replenish energy within the brain. We need to replenish neurotransmitters within the brain. So the more active work that you do, whether it's reading a book, remember when people used to read books, reading a book, reading a paper, or doing actually working on your laptop or doom scrolling through Insta. That's using your brain energy and your neurotransmitters to do something. So you're constantly getting depleted. So remember when you did like 3-hour exams for A-levels, you come out of that and you'd be like, just absolutely smashed. It's a similar kind of thing. If you're constantly looking for stimulation throughout the day, your brain never switches off. Therefore, you will always feel tired. So one of the funny things about, if you can get people off their phones for blocks throughout the day, they have an awful lot more energy. So this whole thing, what's really interesting, looking at all the neurotransmitter things that people are trying to sell, all of the things about energy. Actually, the reason this happens isn't because you're, the free radicals that are doing horrible stuff to your brain, or the lead or the fluoride in the water, whatever nonsense people come up with. It's because you're constantly concentrating on something. So you need to give yourself some time to think. So if you can go for a 10-minute walk to go and get some milk, if you can go for a 20-minute walk after lunch to just get yourself feeling better, then go and do it. Now, if you have to make some phone calls, and if it's going to make it more likely that you're going to get up and actually go and do stuff, do some phone calls. Call your mum, tell her how much you love her. Call your dad and talk about the footballs or whatever it is that you're going to do. Oh, speaking of, I've actually been watching following the India and Australia.
Such a great series, isn't it?
So good.
One of my favourite series.
I know we're talking about cricket.
Such a badger. Look at you go. Who have you become?
Strange. But it's so exciting. It's been really good.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah.
So, you can, like, for me, I'm terrible. I'm always going to be on a news app checking to see what's happening. And I just have to put the damn thing down. So I have to just say, right, instead of getting some food, going to the shops, getting some food and being on my phone, I've got to just put the phone in a drawer, then go for a walk, then go and do stuff, talk to my co-workers, talk to, people, and actually be a decent human being and actually recharge. And then guess what happens? Instead of having the post-lunch, I actually feel I have a lot more mental energy. So I'd say for yourself, this whole thing where people talk about journaling and self-work and all that good stuff, just give yourself some time to just think and be still. And that will pay dividends later on in the rest of the day. You will feel much less tired.
How much do you think sleep affects the ability to lose fat?
Massive. I think probably the biggest thing, certainly for me, is having 11 years of not sleeping well. Thanks, kids. I love you very much. Is that I think there's a certain level of not having sleep where all of a sudden you just start getting absolutely ravenously hungry for sugar. And you'll have some kind of stimulants, you'll have more caffeine or something like that. You want to have more sugar. And that then, for me, it's not just the fact that you're not burning fat, is you're actually more likely to snack and actually be putting stuff on. So I'd say when my sleep is really good, my urge to snack is much less. So this is a leptin ghrelin thing. But also you're much more likely to have a better levels of insulin throughout the day as well. So you're just setting yourself up massively for success.
Coming on to caffeine, yeah. I've seen a lot more stuff coming out about caffeine and how it's a vasoconstrictor in the brain.
Yeah.
and the withdrawals you get is from more blood flow to the brain and all that sort of stuff. Do you think that it has long-term effects, that vasoconstriction in the brain? Do you think that caffeine is as bad as they are now making out?
I haven't looked at the research, so I can't say anything intelligent about it, I think. I would say what does seem to be a trend that is kind of observable is that people who have 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day do seem to live longer. So I'm not sure, is there a particular stress? I wouldn't be able to say. Again, with all things, generally, the less you put into the body, the better things generally are. I think most people would probably do well with limiting their caffeine and having periods of not having as much caffeine or any caffeine throughout the year as possible. It also makes caffeine an awful lot more fun when you do go back on it, of course.
So how important do you think the sauna is? I know for longevity, the research shows it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But in terms of fat loss, I feel like a lot of people think sauna's very good for fat loss because they see instantaneous weight loss, but then they don't see it come back on. Do you think sauna actually has much of an effect on fat loss? Because even the calories burnt, I don't think is particularly meaningful.
No.
Fine.
No. So it's hilarious. I remember, in a much dumber time, when I'd see people, especially, when I worked in gyms, they'd get into the sauna in the sauna suits, and they'd weigh themselves before and they'd weigh themselves after, and you're like, it's just water. They're like, yeah, but it's going down, so it's good. You're like, you're an idiot, because what do? They're in their sauna suit, get weighed in the sauna suit, right? Go in, come out absolutely dehydrated, take off the sauna suit, so you've already done that, have that, and then they go and just smash a gallon of water. You're like, do you not see where this is going, you chumps? So that's different. I think what we can see, so what do I really see the health benefits of sauna? I think there's probably the anti-Alzheimer's, all of that good stuff. I think probably one of the best things about it is it just makes you go and be still for 20 minutes. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And that seems like such a, it's not cool, it's not sexy. You haven't spent thousands of pounds on it. People aren't kind of showing you lots of cool people doing this on Instagram, but it's really, really bloody effective. How good do you feel at the end of the day when you've had a sauna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel a lot more relaxed.
Yeah. And then
you feel like you've done something as well.
Yeah. And again, I think it's also something that you've nurtured yourself in a really beneficial way. You're not watching TV, you're not doing anything else. You listen to some music or whatever, but have that as part of your wind down, and then do the most important thing, which you can do, which is get some really good solid sleep.
In terms of the cardio side of things, the whole fasted cardio thing is, some people argue calories in, calories out, fasted cardio doesn't make a difference. But if you look at the people that have lost the most amount of fat, generally are the bodybuilders, and they all swear by it. So I think there may be something to that.
Absolutely.
Thoughts on fasted cardio, post-gym cardio, or evening cardio? I feel like they've all got their place. Absolutely. But in terms of pure fat loss, what do you think is probably the most effective?
I love looking at fitness athletes, because they're the ones who can consistently put on fat and muscle and consistently maintain muscle and drop fat when they're doing stuff. So I think they really have a lot to tell us about what is possible. Having said that, I think we have to be really honest and realize that the vast majority of people who do competitive fitness are using drugs. And if that's not the case, then they're probably genetically elite. And if they're not genetically elite and they're doing that, then they get absolutely trashed, especially if you're male. I mean, male and female, your hormones go absolutely bananas. So we have to be a little bit careful about what it is we're trying to take with that. Having said all of that, I think the thing that we learn from fitness athletes is discipline. And they just say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this type of cardio. So fasted cardio is really good, because when you wake up in the morning, you don't want to think about what you have to do. Just go and get on a treadmill, go and get on a stepper, and watch some TV, listen to a podcast, whatever it is. You're doing some mindless activity which isn't going to break you, which is very repeatable, and you can ramp up or ramp down depending on how you're feeling on that day or where you are throughout your cycle. So the great thing about that is it gets it done. So that's why I like early morning cardio, is you just get that thing done and actually you're feeling good because you know you've smashed one of your motivational aims for the day. And then you can put some other stuff in. If we look at something like midday or end of day cardio, the reason I like those is generally they'll be after a meal, so you're going to bring your blood sugar down, significantly. Nothing too crazy, but it's certainly going to bring it back within range. And again, you're doing something rather than just sitting down, lounging about. So I think those certainly have a place. If it's January now, so no one really wants to go out at 7 o'clock at night in the snow and ice as we're having at the minute, to go and do this. So it's a little difficult to do. So, I've got the punch bag in the garage. I like to go and have a bit of fun with that. And I find that very motivating. I can always go and hit things. But likewise, actually, I quite enjoy being out in the cold. Again, I'm a large dude. So for me, walking around at 10 o'clock at night, I'm not particularly concerned. Other people, that's not going to concern, they will be concerned. So I think having something where you can that is very repeatable, where you just think, okay, it is X o'clock, I'm going to go and do that thing. I think that's really, really useful. So find what works for you. So for yourself, when do you think you would be able to get in 25 minutes of...
I think the evenings are going to work for me. Okay. The mornings, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
As in, it doesn't work in terms of the distance from the gym and all that sort of stuff. I feel like if I just don't use my phone, it's a good period of time where I'm not using my phone, and it's a break between screen time and bed.
Yeah, nice.
And it's almost a forced, no using the phone. So I think that's probably going to work for me. Yeah. Also, I do find my concentration goes up when I do it mid-afternoon as well. Somehow, maybe it's just that sort of mental break or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think I could either do 2, or I could... The problem with doing 2 is I sometimes I fall off the wagon with that a bit.
Yeah.
But I'll figure one of them out. Anyway,
so
I've been badgering you for half an hour.
Just to jump in there, I would just say, look, give yourself 2 weeks of doing one thing.
Yeah, and then
do 2 weeks or 2, and then literally be a geek about it and write it down in your training book of what you've done. And then that way you can see, well, actually, I love the afternoon thing, but I only did it 4 times last week, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, fair. I'm going to try it. I'll message you. Anyway, we were meant to do supplements and posture, but we've been nerds for half an hour, so I'm going to love you and leave you. Mate. Appreciate it.
Great stuff. It's been really fun.
What's funny is, you know what I forgot to do at the start of the call, other than record?
What did you forget to do? Oh!
But I think if I do it at the end, I can somehow wangle it together.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of camera points to sync up, don't we?
Well, yes. So if you can remind me next time, that would be helpful.
I'm all over it, buddy.